All right, well, good morning, Three Creeks. My name is Joel, and I get to be the pastor here. Here we are, week 6 of a series that we've called Holy Habits. And I was talking with my wife, Morgan, this week. I think it was Monday or Tuesday night. And I just said, man, doesn't this series feel a little different? She says, it does. I said, well, what do you think? I mean, I feel like most of the time we pick a book of the Bible and we're just kind of going through verse by verse and you know, doing it that way. And this just feels more like a bunch of heart-to-hearts back to back to back. And this is what Morgan said, and I agree with her. She said, I don't like it forever, but I like it for now. And I said, I'm into that, because sometimes when we get up here and we have different people teach the Bible, we could rinse and repeat it at the church down the street, and it would apply to them in the same ways that it applies to us. But this series specifically has felt like a heart-to-heart with our church. And it's not going to last forever, but I think that it's important for now. I think it's fair at times. I definitely think it's fair to criticize a sermon if it's shallow. And I'm all for all of us feeling like the theologians that we ought to be, and diving in and saying, what does 201 say? What does 301 say? What is class 401 going to reveal about God and his character? And I encourage all of us to be people that dive into the Bible and want to know the deep things of God. But not until we are nailing it in 101. We shouldn't move on to the other things until we have built a solid base of simple obedience to the Lord. I was trying to think through, what is this series supposed to feel like for us, just in case you're tired of it and you want to get out. Here's what it is. A couple weeks ago, I was mowing my lawn for the first time this year. And every year, March, April, I go into my shed and I'm like, man, tractor, I hope you work. I don't do anything to the tractor. I just kind of hope it works. And believe it or not, it turned on for the first time. It turned on the first time I tried. And so I'm mowing, feeling like $1 million. This is going to be a great year for the lawn. And but over on the side of my lawn this year, there was a tree that got cut down last summer, and now there's like a little stump, but it's almost ground level. And I thought, this is easily going to clear this stump. And so I was just, send it, just going right over it, and it goes, dun-dun, it hits the stump really hard. And about 3 seconds after I hit the stump, the tractor just stopped. And so I was like, oh man. And so I turn on the key again, and it started again for like 3 seconds, and then it turned off again. And I'm going, man, I just broke my tractor. And if you know anything about me, I have no idea how to fix a tractor. So I chat GPT'd it, right? And so I take a picture of it, and I'm going, this is what happened. I hit a stump, it turned off, and chat GPT says there's a 99% chance that you shredded the flywheel key. And I'm like, oh yeah, flywheel key, totally. And I have no idea what that is, but it says 99% chance I shredded the flywheel key. But don't worry, it's an easy fix, and the flywheel key is supposed to shred. That's what actually protects your engine if you hit a stump. I'm thinking, this is case closed. I know what's going on. So I open up the hood and I start unscrewing the whole engine. I'm taking the whole thing apart. You got to take this off and that off. Screws are falling in the grass, and I had to go buy a tool to get one part of it off. And it felt like I took half the engine apart to get to this flywheel key. And then I got to the point where I thought, this is beyond me. It's been 3 hours. Morgan's inside with the kids. I've got to go another direction here. So I took a picture of it and I posted on Gehenna in the Know, somebody please help. I'm in over my head and I've got half the engine in the grass, and is there a mobile lawnmower mechanic that is out and about today? And somebody wrote me back, and his name was Blake Fox, and he wrote me, he said, hey, here's my number, call me. So I called Blake, and young guy, super sharp guy. He says, hey, I'm a half an hour away, but I'm on my way. I said, awesome. He said, hey, while we're on the phone here, while I'm driving, just let me ask you a couple questions. I said, well, dude, I know it's the flywheel key. He said, it's probably not the flywheel key. So he helped me look at it, and we determined it was the flywheel key. But he said it could be a couple other things. Could be a fuel problem. Could be a intake problem, whatever. He's using words I don't understand. But he said it could be a fuel problem. So it's not a fuel problem. Whatever, Blake. And so Blake says, don't worry, I'll be there in 20 minutes. So I'm standing there with the tractor, and I look down and I see this little fuel filter thing that usually is like halfway full of gas, and it's dry. And I'm going, oh, baby. And I flipped up the seat and I opened up the gas tank, and it's just dry as a bone. No gas in the tractor. Half the engine's on the grass. I'm just going, so I call Blake, and I'm like, Blake, bro, I'm out of gas. You're not going to believe it. And he says, turns out, anyways, Blake's an awesome guy. He shows up anyways. It helps me look at a couple other things on the tractor. Came to church a couple weeks ago, actually, and I think it was providential that I got to meet Blake. But I'm not proud to say that it was just because I was out of gas. Here's my point. Man, sometimes we just want to dive in, and we want to go deep, and we get into some stuff we don't know a lot about. And sometimes getting the thing going is as simple as making sure that there's some gas in the tank. Just about everybody who drives a tractor knows it needs some gas. And I got in so over my head, I was overwhelmed, but I ignored the most basic lawnmower tractor maintenance thing. Make sure it has gas. So this series, friends, there will be a day, and even today we're going to get into some quote unquote engine stuff, deeper stuff. But I need you to understand that we are having these conversations to make sure that there's some gas in the tractor, to make sure we are covering the basics, simple obedience at 101 before we move on to the deeper things. So, here we go. We're talking about a healthy church. We're talking about holy habits. We're looking at just a handful of verses at the end of chapter 2 of Acts. We've been here for a couple weeks. We're going to stay here today. Here they are. This is a description of the first church ever. Not a perfect church. They're the prototype. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. And every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. In this series so far, we've said that a healthy church is a church that responds, that doesn't think about it, but that responds and looks at each other after church and says, what are we supposed to do about this? Not, what do you think about this? It's a church that learns. It's a church that believes that the answers to life's hardest questions start by digging into the Bible. That's where the answers are at. It's a church that loves being together, that loves being together at church, being together at community group, being together in homes. It's a church that loves being together. A healthy church is a church that remembers, that establishes regular rhythms to remember the goodness of God, that doesn't quickly forget. And last week we said that a healthy church is a church that's devoted to prayer. 170 of you, I'm so proud of you. 170 people opted in to just committing to pray for 30 seconds a day for 30 days. And I, for one, have been reminded, I'm 7 for 7, baby. 30 seconds a day, at least this week, I've prayed for the different things that our church is praying for. And if you're into that, if you're doing that with me, man, this is just the start of being devoted to prayer. And if you missed last week or you're interested in jumping in, you can text the word pray to the number on the screen, 844-663-1580, and we'll send you that daily text at 3 o'clock just to say, hey man, let's pray. Let's be devoted to prayer. And here are the two verses that we're focusing on today. Verse 44 and 45. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give it to anyone who had need. Here's the big idea. A healthy church is a church that is good at sharing. A healthy church is a church that's good at sharing. They were really good at being generous with each other. They would identify people who had needs. And there were a lot of new people, and there were a lot of people who had needs because their church, everybody was losing their jobs because they were becoming Christians. Okay, so they had a lot of need. 3,000 people were being added to their number in one day. There's a lot of need. And their church, man, people are selling their property to make sure that no one in the church goes hungry, that no one in the church doesn't have a home. A healthy church is a church that shares and shares sacrificially. You might be asking yourself right now, is Joel talking about money? Oh yeah, baby. We're talking about money. Every healthy family that I know talks about money, and so does every healthy church. But I'm not just talking about money. A healthy church is a group of people that live like this. They live open-handed. They know that everything that they've been given, that their cars, their kids, their couches, that it's all God's. An unhealthy church lives like this. An unhealthy people live like this. I got to get mine. I've got to keep. I've got to hoard. I've got to save. I've got to be secure. I've got to take care of myself. And God is saying, I am so much better at taking care of you than you are of yourself if you'll open your hands. I want to tell you about a church that I know of that's very good at sharing. There's a church over in Hilliard called Movement Church. They started 14 years ago, 2012. I'm wearing the shirt representing this church from Hilliard. They met at a YMCA for 11 or 12 years. And 4 years into their existence, in 2016, they said, man, we're not just trying to build one church, we're trying to plant churches. They only had 200 people at the time. But they said, we want to send a group of people to plant a new church. And so they hired a church planting resident in 2016, and his name was me. It was me. I got to be the first church planting resident at Movement Church in Hilliard. And when they brought me on the stage, they said, everything that we have is being offered to him. Our resources, our people, our money, our pulpit. They said, we've saved $100,000 and we've set it aside so that if this thing takes off and Joel and Morgan can gather a team and you guys want to go, man, we are going to plant a new church somewhere in Greater Columbus. Mark Artrip, their lead pastor, stood on the stage and said, everybody other than my wife needs to pray about going on the church plant. And 49 people from Movement Church, a bunch of people moved. They literally sold their houses and moved over here to Gahanna. And we started Three Creeks in 2018 with 49 people. And since then, we've just seen dozens, so many people come to know who Jesus is and be baptized and walk with him and walk in the way of love. And man, it's just, it goes without saying, but we wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be here if it weren't for Movement Church being so good at sharing. For them not being like this, but for them being like this. And then 2 years after that, after 2018, Movement and Three Creeks got together. We said, hey, we know this other guy. His name's Trey Gilmore. What if we hire him? Neither of us are really able to have our own baby church by ourselves, but what if we get together? We'll collaborate. So Trey joins the team in 2019, spends half his time at Movement, half his time with us. And I stood up, I said, hey, everybody here needs to think about going. And so Contrast Church was planted in Grandview in 2020. And today, this Sunday, right now, there's about 500 people that are worshiping Jesus at Contrast Church down in Grandview. And we did the same thing that Movement did. We said, hey man, our people, our resources, our pulpit, our money, it's not ours. We want to be good at sharing. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, 16 people from Three Creeks went on that launch team. And over the course of 3 or 4 years, we gave Contrast about $100,000 to get them off the ground. And then in 2023 or 4, 2 years ago, Josh Taylor, him and his wife Sarah, moved down here from Akron. They jump on Movement Churches as their new resident. And they say, we feel called to plant a church in Sunbury. And so Josh and Sarah moved to Sunbury. And they were basically 90% Movement, 10% us. We jumped on board because we gave them a financial gift that helped them start their whole kids ministry. And 18 people from Three Creeks who lived closer to Sunbury than Gahanna went to be on their launch team to start their church. This is a picture of all the people on their launch Sunday about 15 months ago. And you guys, a few weeks ago on Easter, Bright City had 246 people who heard the good news of Jesus because we want to be good at sharing. We talk about church planting all the time. Church plant doesn't happen unless we're good at sharing. The question that's been, on our elder agenda, basically every elders meeting I can remember is what's going on with us in church planting. In other words, when are we going to have our own baby? Because we're not trying to build a castle here. We're trying to build the kingdom of God. And we believe that the most effective way to reach people who are far from God is to start new churches. And there's just no doubt about that. There's no question that the most effective way to reach people who are far from God is to start new churches. So when are we going to have a baby? Guys, I've been waiting for years for this moment right here. And I have been praying, and I really have been praying for years for this moment right now. We've been working for a couple months, and we found somebody. We are going to hire our first full-time church planting resident. Guys, this is a picture right here of John and Alicia McClellan and their daughter, Delaney. Yeah. John lives in Westerville. He's been a youth pastor in Powell for about a decade. He was in ministry even a little bit before that as well. I'm telling you, these guys are amazing. They went through an assessment, they went through an interview, and he, let me tell you, was made for this. I went through an assessment a couple years ago, and I got a 4 out of 5. Felt pretty good about that. My man John, 4.5 out of 5. Better, man. He is awesome. He is humble. He is an entrepreneur. He loves Jesus so much. And they're going to join. I wanted them to be here today, but they're actually at their church announcing the very same thing. And their church is getting to celebrate and send John and Alicia to us so that we can send them with a launch team to plant a church. I'm not going to tell you where, but January 2028, we're starting a new church. We're not trying to be a church that just gets real big right here and a couple people lead it. We're trying to multiply, plant churches that plant churches that plant churches, and fan into flame the gift of God that is in all the people and reach people for Jesus. That's what we're doing. The most effective way to reach people who are far from God is to start new churches. And man, we just want to be so good at sharing. We're not measuring success by counting the number of butts in seats. We're measuring success by how many butts we can send and how many people can know who Jesus is because of that. And let me just say, man, this is not easy. I have to look in the mirror and I have to tell myself, healthy churches are good at sharing. Healthy churches are good at sharing. Healthy churches are good at sharing. The idea of you being on that launch team and not being here makes me want to cry and throw up at the same time. It's not easy. But we want to be a church that's so good at sharing. I've said this in every week so far in the series. I'll say it one more time, that this is an all-church thing. That we collectively are making decisions to be devoted to prayer and devoted to gathering and devoted to church planting and sharing, etc. But man, let's all take this personally. Every person ought to take this personally. Let me just ask you a few pointed questions. Are you, as a person, are you good at sharing? Are you good at living like this? Are you good at living generously? And are you playing an active part in helping our church be good at sharing? You say sharing, isn't that something that we were supposed to learn in kindergarten? Yes. Yes, Willow is battling this idea right now of sharing. If we go to the pool and there's one little plastic tub of blueberries, all my kids are just going, a lot of times they're like, they just want to get a handful and they just say, mine, these are mine. And when they do that, I say, they're kids. They're still figuring this out. But from time to time, one of my kids will surprise me and they'll get 2 handfuls and then they'll see that one of the siblings doesn't have as many and they'll say, hey, you can have some of mine. I want to be good at sharing. And I go, oh my goodness, they're growing up. They're growing up. And it's the same with us, man. If we are just going to live like this, we're still kindergartners spiritually. And it's when we start to live like this that we actually are proving that we're growing up in our faith. I will acknowledge once again that living like this is not easy. Do you guys remember $5 footlongs? Mine was $12 this week. I saw gas on Friday for $3.89 and I thought, ooh, that's a good deal. I better swing in there. fill up. I'm just telling, we could all go around in circles and talk about how everything is more expensive. One of the things that I read this week was that 72% of the people in this room feel moderately or extremely stressed, worried about money. 72%. And the 72%, if I asked you to raise your hands and 72% of you raised your hands, if I asked you, if I was having a one-on-one, just sitting down, my guess is that you probably think that the 28% that aren't raising their hands, well, they just have enough money not to be stressed about it. But that isn't true. There's so many studies that prove this. One of them was in Reader's Digest a couple years ago. They asked a group of people who were making $20,000, how much money would you actually need to make in a year to not feel worried about it? And they all said $40,000, or that was the average answer. And then they asked people who made $40,000, they said, how about you? How much money do you need in order to feel safe, secure, not worried about money? They said, we need $75,000 a year. Then they asked the people who made $75,000 a year, how much do you need? They said, we need $125,000. So it proves the point that the difference between the 72% that are worried about it and the 28% that aren't worried about it has nothing to do with how much you have. Jesus said, if you live like this, you're guaranteed to be worried about your money. But if you live like this, you can feel free from that worry. And you say, well, where do you get an idea like that? Jesus said it himself. You had the opportunity to read it a little bit earlier, but Jesus was with his disciples. I just want to read you what he said again. In Luke chapter 12, it said, Jesus says to his disciples, therefore, I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you're going to eat, about your body, what you're going to wear. For life is more than food and the body is more than clothes. Consider the ravens. He gives a couple pictures. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, no investments. And yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the wildflowers grow. They don't labor or spin, and yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed as pretty as a flower. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? Don't set your heart on what you're going to eat or drink. Don't worry about it. For the pagan, the people that don't know Jesus, who don't believe in God, the pagan the world runs after all such things. And your Father, he knows that you need them. Seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. This is what Jesus is saying, that a surefire way to be worried about your money is to try to get as much as you can and keep as much as you can. If you live your life chasing earthly wealth, you're guaranteed one thing according to Jesus: worrying about it, being stressed about it. Jesus is saying, don't chase earthly wealth. I know the way we think is, well, if we just had a little bit more earthly wealth, we could be less worried about money. Jesus says, no, it's not how it works. A lot of what I'm teaching is upside down. Jesus is saying, hands open, worry less. Hands tight, worry more. Your choice. Jesus here is saying that generosity is actually what demolishes worry. The secret to feeling rich, not being rich, but feeling rich, is to be great at sharing. And if you don't believe me, if you're going, I would just say, you haven't tried it. Jesus, he's right. He's not lying. You haven't tried it. The first church lived like this. Here's the two verses that we're on today. All the believers were together. They had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. First glance, and by the way, there have been entire ways of thinking, governments, religions, based on just these two verses. You might ask, are you encouraging communism here, Joel? Well, the answer, of course, is no. But I am encouraging what's called communism. That's where people are really good at sharing. Because communism says what's yours is mine. It's a really bad way to live. But communism says what's mine is yours. I want to be good at sharing. And it's a great way to live. And the first church was sacrificially sharing with anyone who had need to the point of selling some of their property, which seems crazy. Here's a very, very, very important principle about money. And when, you guys, especially people that call Three Creeks Church your home, from time to time, my guess is that if you have a conversation with somebody about our church, especially if they've got any church background, they might wonder, what does your church think about money? So whether it's with your extended family or somebody you work with, somebody you work out with, or just a conversation you're having with a friend, if anyone were to ever ask you, what does your church think about money? I want you to know the answer to that. And so I'm going to lay it out for you that this is what we believe here at Three Creeks about money. Everything we have is God's. Every dollar we have is God's. Every deed with our name on it. It's temporary. It's not ours. It's God's. We are not owners. We are stewards. Psalm 24:1 says that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all its people belong to Him. We have to get this into our heads. If we think that we are the owners, it's always going to be hard to give. But when we know that we're the stewards, man, that's when it opens the door to getting to be a cheerful giver, somebody who's good at sharing. God owns everything. We are the stewards. A steward is simply somebody that takes care of something that belongs to somebody else. In Psalm 50, God says, all the animals of the forest are mine. I own a cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird on the mountains, and all the animals of the field are mine. Which means every pride of lions, God's. Every head of cattle, God's. Every chicken, every Chick-fil-A sandwich, God's. Our lawn tools, our trucks, our weekends, our couches, our paintbrushes, everything in your wallet, everything in your purse, the shirts on our backs, the shoes on our feet, the food in our freezers. God's. And listen, there's sometimes I think to myself, I get paid or whatever, and then I take 10%, my tithe. That's how I was raised. It's how we roll. I take 10% and I go, this is God's. Here's the truth. The other 90%, God's. It's all His. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And there's this idea out there, this comment out there that hurts my feelings as a pastor. When people say, oh, the church just wants my money. I go, wrong. It's not your money. It's not yours. Everything we have is God's. And you guys, if you think that way, all of a sudden, every purchase you make has so much more purpose. Because, okay, a bunch of us have a mortgage, right? You're trying to own your house, so you're paying down your mortgage. You guys, if we just see that as a bill to pay, well, then that's one way of thinking. But you guys, if we see that our money has been given to us by God, and now we're transferring it to the bank so that we can live in the house that we live in, there's so much more purpose, because now all of a sudden we're going, man, I'm making an investment so I can have a roof over my head, so that my kids can feel safe, so I could welcome people into my home, so I can serve them a meal, because this house is God's. If you make a car payment, okay, sure, a couple $100 going out, but really it's God's. He gave it to you. You're paying for a car, but now you have a car. And now you can travel to the place that you work, and you can invest in the lives of the people that you work with. And maybe there's a chance for you to give a ride to somebody who doesn't have a car. There's so much more purpose in it when you see it this way. If you go and work out at the gym, I don't know how much you pay for your gym, $25, $175, anywhere in between. This is an investment. You're not just paying for a six-pack. You're paying because you want to be healthy, because you want to live as many years as possible, loving and serving people. You think, man, there might be people in that gym that nobody else is going to share Jesus with, but I will. And so you're paying to play in that game with those people. So you go, man, every purchase I make all of a sudden has so much more purpose. It's not just me paying bills. It's me making it so that I can live on mission for Jesus. The church just doesn't want, quote unquote, your money. It's not your money. But I'm totally committed to helping you see that everything that you have is God's. It's all His. And seeing it as this adds immense purpose to your life. I want you to know that I'm not personally motivated today. And I'm going to share something with you. I don't think I've ever shared this before, but I feel totally fine saying it. How much you guys think a pastor ought to make? How much you think an annual salary for a lead pastor in Columbus ought to make? I mean, you guys, I don't know what you think. I've had lots of conversations with different people. Some people think pastors are stuffing their pockets. Some people think pastors are living in poverty. I'll just proudly tell you that our elders love caring for the staff of our church. They love making sure that we can pay our bills, take care of our family, eat food, etc. I'll just tell you, I make in a year $94,364. And it's actually like 84, but there's like $10,000 in benefits when it comes to health and retirement, things like that. And I know a bunch of pastors who make a lot less than that. And I know a lot of pastors who make a lot more than that. And you might make a lot less than that, or you might make a lot more than that. I feel grateful for a team of elders who decide my salary and love my family. If you guys walk out of here today and go, man, we should be better at sharing. We should give more to God's work. And let's just say, hypothetically, everybody here, everybody who's given to Three Creeks, all of a sudden doubles what they share with our church, doubles what they give. Guess what my salary would be next year? I have it on good record that it will be $94,364. Same. And if I made $9,000, or if I made $900,000, I would still have the same theology that everything that I have has been given to me by God to use for his purposes. And I'm going to just do my best to do that. And I share that with you because, friends, we've got nothing to hide. I'm proud of the whole budget. We're in budgeting season right now, and we're just combing through and going, man, where can we cut? Where can we be more efficient? How can we be more effective? Can I tell you that here at Three Creeks, how well we're doing at sharing these days? I'll just shoot straight with you. If you're a guest here today, you're getting a good look behind the curtain. We are 92% of the way through our fiscal year. We're 11 months through 12 months. We end on June 30th. That's only, and we have given 86% of what we projected that our church would give about a year ago when we made this year's budget. And so if we have a quote unquote normal June in giving, then we'll end the year about $27,000 behind what we projected. It's our first year, perhaps, that we will have ended in the red for a while. We have cut some costs. We don't love doing that. We don't feel great about it, but we're making it work. We're in budget season right now. We're making projections for next year. And our church has some dreams for what we want to do. But if I'm being honest with you, I'm looking at some of our sharing habits and I'm going, I don't know if we can afford these things that we feel like we should do. Of course, we have fixed costs as a church, right? We have to rent this building. We have to pay the mortgage on the well. You wouldn't believe the number of fruit snacks these kids are eating back there. There's fixed costs. There's things that we're committed to. This is what we're going to spend. We got to have a website. And there are variable ministry costs. And I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm trying to tell you the truth that the more that we share, the more that we can do. And the less that we share, the less that we can do. Period. Our elders are really good at looking at the trends of saying like, hey, we're not going to try to get upside down and go into debt. We're not going to do it. And we're going to do what we believe that our church will enable us to do. We want to do some of these things, but our current habits put these budget items sort of up in the air. This is June. This is what we're talking about. What can we afford? For the last couple of years, we've had this counseling fund. We've helped dozens of people go to counseling who could not otherwise afford counseling. We've had this fund set aside, and it kind of hangs in the balance right now to be able to help people. About, I don't know how many months ago it was, maybe 9 months ago, we started having a police officer. We rent a police officer to provide an added layer of security for our kids and for us while we're here. At first I thought, is this kind of overkill? Now that we have it, I'm like, I think I like it. I think it's responsible. There's a lot of people in here. We want to make sure we're safe. Kind of hangs in the balance. Three Creeks Kids and Shark Nights. We have a Shark Night tonight. My daughter has 4 friends from school whose families don't go to church, they're all coming to Shark Night tonight. They're going to hear about Jesus. Now, we're not going to cut Three Creeks kids. We're not going to cut Shark Nights, but I'm telling you that the amount that we're going to be able to invest in those things is going up or down based on our sharing habits. 83% of adult Christians first made a decision to follow Jesus when they were a kid. I'm asking you if you think that's worth investing in. Support for ministry workers. Right now, our church gets to actively support 3 people. There are 7 other people who are working full-time in ministry outside of Three Creeks that we want to support, that we want to get behind, that we want to say, hey, we believe in you. Come to Three Creeks, get recharged, refreshed, worship Jesus with us, but let us be a part of sending you to do what you do. But right now, it kind of hangs in the balance. To the point where, believe it or not, we're thinking about, Morgan told me to share this because I don't think she wants me to do it. So here we go. We're thinking about throwing a 5K this fall, right around Halloween, so you guys can all run 3 miles in a costume. And we're like, man, maybe people will give $40 that way. And then we'll have enough money to support all these missionaries. And the amount of work and the amount of money and the kind of the risk and whatever it's going to take to pull that off, I guess we could do it, and maybe we will do it. Maybe it'd be really fun. I don't know. Morgan's words, not mine. We shouldn't allow whether or not people want to run in a costume to determine whether or not we're able to support people who are in ministry. Can we all just get better at sharing? Was there another one? Yeah, man. Guys, a year from now, we announced John and Alicia coming to the team this fall. You guys, a year from now, do you have any idea how many 4th and 5th graders are back there that need a youth group? If we don't financially get ready for that, what's going to happen? We got to get ready to be able to pay somebody, part-time, full-time, I don't know, but I'm all in on making sure that our kids know that they are valuable to us. We got to get ready for that. Listen, I'm cool being in the middle school, and we might be here for a little while. There will come a day, man, I would love to have a Long Church permanent home. I'd love to have a church, Three Creeks Church here in Gahanna for 150 years. I'd love that. If that's going to happen, we have got to get better at sharing. I'm just telling you the truth. So here's the closing question, and we talked about this in week 1. We're unhealthy, bad habit if we walk out of here and go, wow, I really hope somebody else thinks about that. Man, I'm asking you, what is God asking you to do? What is God asking you? If you've never shared with our church before, ever, I'm asking you, would you consider sharing, giving to our church? If you share sporadically, from time to time, when you feel like it, I'm asking if you would consider giving regularly, faithfully, devoted, sharing, a priority in your life. If you're giving regularly, sharing consistently, but not sacrificially, if you kind of forgot about it already, I'm asking you to really consider, what does this look like for you to live like this? Would you consider sharing to the point where it stings a little bit, where you can't do something else because you invested in the work of God at your local church? And man, if you are giving, sharing regularly, sacrificially, man, I praise the Lord for you. And I know you have less money, but I bet you feel filthy rich, because I believe that Jesus was right, that if you want to be worried about it, live like this. But if you want to feel free, live like this. It is all His. I thought about a way to close our service, and let's give it a shot. Would you guys just stand with me? We're going to sing a song in a second, but I just want to lead us in a prayer. And if you wouldn't mind, I'm just gonna pray for us. And if you're with me, just close your fists like this at first and allow me to repent on all of our behalfs. God, it is so tempting to live like this. It's so tempting to want to be in control, to get more money so that we can not feel stressed, to take care of ourselves. Jesus, I repent. that there are times where I just want to get more. I want to keep it. I want to play it safe. I want to feel secure. And I think it's mine. And I'm sorry. And if you're with me, just open your palms now up, just as a posture of saying, this isn't mine. Jesus, this is how I want to feel. And this is how I want to be. I want to believe that my car is yours. That my kids are yours. That my clubs are yours. That the guest bedroom at my house is not mine. It is yours. That the gift cards in my wallet are not mine. They are yours. 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 I declare it because sometimes I have a hard time believing it. I want to live like this for the rest of my life. Will you help me, Jesus? Amen. Thanks for watching. To find out more about our church, about when and where we meet, about joining a group, about serving on a team, about giving online, you can find all of it at threecreekschurch.com.